We can turn off the SAS so we don't use any power. And we're good. In orbit around the moon. Okay. Now, I haven't actually confirmed that our ship is, like, correct for this mission, but I'm pretty sure. We're a probe, moon, we have to be on the surface, and we have to have the ability to recover or transmit any experiment, and that's certainly the case. So, we're going to quick save. I'm going to wait until we're on the sunny side of the moon, for 2 reasons. 1, it's a lot easier to land when you can see your shadow, and 2, that means we'll be able to guarantee we keep getting power from our solar panels. That's all. Eccentricity is 0.002. Wow. Yeah, we're really close. And our inclination's only 1.7 degrees. We're very close to being true equatorial. It's not too shabby, huh? Alright, so how do you land? Ultimately, at some point, you're going to have to kill all your sideways motion. Right now, we are moving... Can I get this to look... There we go. Right now, we're mostly moving sideways very fast. Obviously, you can't land while moving sideways. So, a big part of the equation is stopping all sideways motion. In a sense, we could do that entirely from orbit. Kill all sideways motion, drop straight down, and then a nice gentle landing. But just as with takeoff, that's not very fuel efficient. We actually don't have a connection to the KSC right now, so we're not going to land right here. We're going to probably wait until we're just around the corner, but that's okay. That's not very efficient. Diagonal lines are easier. Just like when you're trying to cross a park. You don't go, like, to the right and then up when you're trying to cross a park. You cut through the middle. It's shorter, so you use less energy. And the same thing is true with space travel. Stopping all sideways motion, then dropping down, and then stopping all downward motion right before you hit the ground will work and is actually very easy, but isn't very fuel efficient. So what you tend to do is you burn retrograde at first so that at some point your orbit's going to drop. And then on your way down, you do a combination of slowing your downwards and sideways motion at the same time. I will err on the side of caution and kill a whole lot of sideways motion as early as possible because it makes the landing a lot easier. A heck of a lot easier. I'm going to do a hard quick save here, just so that we have some reference point to go back to. Just because flying out here again would be annoying. That part's easy and it would just be time consuming. I'm going to go a little bit more. We have a connection now, but as we get close to the surface, we may not. Okay, good enough. If we go and burn retrograde now, we might be able to land right smack in the middle of this crater. That sounds awesome. Let's do it. Retrograde. So we're going to burn retrograde. Dropping our orbit, and at some point, getting this blue line to be somewhere over here. Now, we're not going to land here. We're probably going to end up landing somewhere over here, and that seems okay. Nice thing about these craters, a lot of time the base of the crater is relatively flat. Sounds fun. Okay, so at this point, our probe is now going to collide with the moon over here if we don't do anything. We're still moving very highly sideways. We can get more of that information, actually. If we open up MechJeb and bring up the surface info, this is really handy-dandy info over here, which tells us our surface speed broken down into vertical speed and horizontal speed. Most of our speed right now is horizontal. Look, our total speed relative to the surface is 340, and 339 of that is horizontal. Although, as time goes on, more of it's going to translate into vertical. So we can go in this mode. We don't need to be looking at the map anymore. I'm going to go and... Well, that'll probably extend from a science experiment at some point. Oh, you know what? Here, hold on. I've got a thimble full of fuel left in our current stage. So I'm going to go and use the rest of this to stop all of our horizontal motion. Excellent. I'm going to turn off the auto science. And actually, I'll toggle this down. Then we'll go ahead and stage. Excellent. And I think we have to stage again to light this engine. Okay, it's lit. Good. So, mostly, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be doing a lot of, like, retrograde motion on our way down. Because we want to make sure we don't start going too fast. The other thing that's important is this is altitude above sea level. I mean, there's not a sea on the moon, but it's that. This is not your true altitude above the ground. This is one of the things that MechJeb can give you, is your altitude, your true altitude above the ground. Oh! We're actually going to be landing below sea level. Because we're 18 kilometers above sea level, but 19 kilometers above the ground where we are. Sweet. Yeah, the smartass. Basically, smartass is the same as the stability assist mode with a few extra buttons A, that they're easier to click, and B, they do give you access to a few modes that our probe doesn't have natively here, but it's not too shabby. So I'm going to try to make sure that my vertical speed doesn't get too high. Ideally, what you do is you set it up so that you fall, and then at some magic distance above the ground, the suicide burn distance, you go to full throttle, and you just leave it be, and it just so happens that at full throttle, it brings your speed to 0 right as you touch the ground. That's the most fuel-efficient way to do it, and it's just going to be impossible for me to eyeball that. So I'm going to try to make sure my vertical speed doesn't exceed 200 meters per second now, and then as we get closer, I'm going to try to keep that margin lower and lower and lower to come to a nice soft landing. Let's go ahead and extend our landing gear before we forget that. Lovely sound, actually. Excellent. So I'm going to burn here. One of the interesting things that will happen, I mean, obviously we're killing some of our vertical speed, but we're also killing our horizontal speed. So I'm going to try to keep it at about 100 now. Surface negative level is the same as burning pure retrograde. We still have a ways to go. We've got a lot of fuel, though, so I should probably, since I have so much fuel, we'll do a safer landing. I'm going to burn off a little bit more of my horizontal speed. I'm burning on the horizon, lined up with the retrograde marker. All it's there for is to kill horizontal speed. Excellent. We're basically falling straight down now. Oh, one of our bits just crash landed. Impact in 21 seconds. Estimated burn 6 seconds. That's actually handy. I didn't realize we'd have that information there. Vertical speed is way too high. Okay, actually, I killed way too much of that. But that's okay. We have 45 seconds left of burn time, and this helper is telling us, really, truly, we only need 3 seconds of burn to stop. Our sideways motion is basically non-existent. At this point, I could just set regular SAS to just stability assist. I'm going to hard code it to say, just make sure you're keeping us pointed up, which is the only thing I care about now. All right. Surface speed there. So surface speed here. We need this to be 0 right before we touch. Oh, there we go. Our altitude true. Oh, we are landing above ground. We're not below sea level. The problem is, first of all, our weight's a little off. The problem is when we were going sideways, our true altitude was sideways. So we're only 500 meters up. So if we fall at, say, 10 meters per second, that means we'll land in about 50 seconds, right? I think this takes into account acceleration. So I'm going to try to keep this about there. 300 meters off. We should be able to see our shadow at this point. There it is. Being able to see your shadow makes your landing a heck of a lot easier. So landing speed, I think these landing gears can survive a landing speed of 12 meters per second. They actually might be 20. But we want to avoid bouncing around, and just for style points, we don't want to land that hard. Your parachute tends to land you at around 6 meters per second, which seems pretty sweet. If we can do even better than that, wouldn't that be fantastic? Again, ideally, we just go to 100% burn right before landing and have that bring us to 0. But that's too hard, so we're just going to slowly... Well, we still need to go down. Slowly bring our speed down. 3 meters per second, 2.9. And kill it right before we land, because otherwise you land, and then your engines tend to send you up. Not bad face, huh? Huh? Look at that. We can stop the ASS and tell it it's okay. We can just settle onto the ground just fine here. I don't know why we're still wobbling. We've got everything turned off. There shouldn't be... I'm just going to turn on Time Warp for a second. I have no idea why we're sort of wobbling here. The collision box must be slightly off from what we see. There's no reason this leg shouldn't be touching. It must be touching at this point. So, we can run all our science experiments now. And all we have to do, I think, to complete the contract is transmit some piece of science from the surface. So let's go ahead and transmit the magnetometer scan. Boom! Moon landing completed. We can get a little bit more science if we log our temperature. So this is the moon's far side crater, is what we're doing. So we'll transmit that as well. And pressure data, which not surprisingly might be 0. Transmit data. And I think that's all of our experiments that we can do. So we get a bit more science at home. We complete a very important contract with a lot of money. It also is one of the steps required to unlock the contract to send a manned mission over here. And that's it. We actually have enough fuel left. We could bring this probe home. I mean, it would burn up in the atmosphere on return, but we actually do have enough here to lift off and leave the moon's sphere of influence. But we may as well leave it here. The nice thing is, every now and again, you'll get a contract that says something like, transmit some science from the moon's surface. So we could just pop back over to this probe, run an experiment. It'll be worth 0 science, but we can still transmit a 0 science experiment to complete most of those contracts. Probably center of mass. Yeah, I guess maybe. Yeah, it might be slightly tipped because of the center of mass and wonky hitboxes for the landing gear and whatever, but we're clearly okay. So this guy's going to stay here. What a successful little mission. Do you have enough to lift off and drop it on Minmus? It's going to take about 800 meters per second to lift off from the moon. And then, I don't remember, it's not much. It's like maybe 100, 150 meters per second of delta V to break lunar orbit. We could certainly fly by Minmus like this. But I'd be kind of doubtful that we'd have enough for a landing, even though you don't need much delta V to land on Minmus. Anyway, at this point, let's go back. The other thing we could do with this bad boy is we could lift up and just bop over to another biome on the moon and transmit some more science from there. But I think for now we're good. Okay. Mission control, SETI contracts. Right. Next thing we have to do is we have to prove that we can keep a Kerbal alive for at least 72 hours. Because 72 hours, 3 days, is about what you need for a lunar flyby. So we're going to design some sort of vessel that can keep a Kerbal alive for at least 3 days. And most likely this exact same vessel will also be used to do our lunar flyby. So it's the same thing as the Apollo program, basically. We'll just confirm that it works, and then we'll use the exact same vessel to send a Kerbal to the moon. So this thing's going to have to be able to come home. So obviously it's going to need a parachute, and it will need a heat shield. And again, people have pointed out that if it's just a Kerbal orbit, you probably can come back without a heat shield, but better safe than sorry. I'm saying we're going to design the ship that's going to bring us to the moon and back, but I think for this one we won't bother with science experiments because there's literally no science to get, so we may as well save some money and some weight, I guess. So this will be the simple payload. Oh, it's going to need some life support. Well, we don't have to bring the life support bits back home, although they're a little bit pricier and they're pretty light. Life support, life support, life support. There we go. There's one that is going to be, so that's just oxygen. Generic supplies, food, oxygen, water. Excellent. And we're going to want the small version of that and put that there. So this little tank has got food, water, and oxygen for our Kerbal. And if we take a look at this, this will be enough to last 35 days. Food, water, oxygen. Plenty. Excellent. The limiting factor is going to be power right now because we only have enough electricity to last 2 hours as is. And then after your Kerbal runs out of the basic life support in here, he can still survive in his suit for, I think, another 2 hours. I'm not sure. But obviously we need the ability to produce constant power. Just, again, I'm going to go ahead and stick, first of all, as a safety, I'm going to stick a battery on there. But the real thing is going to be solar panels. Now these solar panels, I guess I could put a couple of flat ones on there. That's going to be fine. I might want to go and put one of the extender ones. These things don't shrink back again, so they get burned off on re-entry anyway. But I think what I'll do is on this stage here, which is going to, again, be wicked amounts of overkill, almost certainly. On this stage here, as just to make sure, you know, a little bit more safety. Here at Kerbal Space Program, we're all about safety after all. We're going to put a trio of extendable solar panels on there, just so that we got every solar angle covered. Way overkill, that's fine. More parachutes. I think we're going to be good on parachutes, especially, I do use the real chutes here, so it is important to, like, make sure that, first of all, the parachute will calculate its strength using just what's actually returning home. So we click on this. Yeah, just use the current mass, the dry mass, apply these settings. Excellent. Good. So it's going to be a correctly set up parachute with, you know, the minimal weight the parachute needs to successfully bring that bit home. So that's going to be A-okay. So we'll go ahead and put in another decoupler. And we just got to make sure we've got enough delta V to reach orbit, which if you're like 4,500 delta V is more than enough to get there. So I suspect with the swivel engine will probably be 4,700. Excellent. We might want to go and pad that out a bit just to make sure. We don't have that much surface level thrust with this engine, so I wouldn't want to add any other fuel tanks. So it's either going to be some sort of asparagus staging and or SRB. SRB is very, like, appropriate, I think, for this sort of thing. So let's go ahead and get radial couplers. We'll throw like 3 hammers on there or something. Even then, that's probably just ludicrous. Are these tiny? Oh, they are tiny. How cute. Yeah, that's way too much. Just a pair then. And as happens so often in Kerbal Space Program, we're going to end up with something that's, you know, kind of phallic looking. But hey, that's rockets. Rockets for you. So you're just going to go, then you're going to light, then you're going to light. There we go. So we're now at 5,200 meters per second. Overkill in Delta V, but if I have a terrible ascent, an inefficient ascent, then we're going to be fine. Always better to have too much overkill than not enough. It is the Kerbal way. Throw some fins on there for stability as well. We'll be taking off straight up with the hammers, and that's going to be A-okay. It only takes 3,600 Delta V to reach orbit. I think that number might be an old number. Isn't that like a pre-1.0 atmospheric number? And there's no... And one of the things is there's not a constant number anymore because the total amount of Delta V is very dependent on how much of your Delta V you're going to lose to aerodynamic drag as well as gravity thrust. So the shape of your rocket matters for aerodynamic drag, and your surface level thrust is going to matter for how much you're going to lose to gravity drag. So there's not any one magic number. This is overkill. 4,500 is like almost certainly going to work all the time, but you know, safety, right? And this way we can afford to do a slightly less efficient ascent, and that's going to be okay. So we should have everything to keep oh yeah, Jebediah is dead. To keep Valentina alive for at least 3 days in orbit. So this is going to be... I mean, I guess at this point, this is sort of like a Mercury level thing. Something... We're going to be using a variation on this to get to the moon. I mean, because we're going to want to do a moon flyby with science. I don't know if we need a real name for this. Just like... This is sort of the Orbiter Mark II, I suspect. And then code-named. There we go. That's all it is. It's just an Orbiter design. It's the Hawk DD. I think we're good. Got room for shoots on the boosters. These boosters are dirt cheap. It's not worth setting them up with a parachute. They are irrelevant. So, manned, we've got a Kerbal. We're on Kerbin. We need to get to orbit. 12. Right! We need to survive 12 days. I forgot. Kerbin... In Kerbal Space Program, a day is 6 hours. A day on Kerbin is 6 hours. So 72 hours is actually 12 days. But, again, we still have more than enough life support for that. I'm sure. Probably. SAS turned on, full throttle, go. There you go, yeah. See, because we have 35 days worth of food, water, oxygen, and the electricity is going to last, well, indefinitely it should, because every day we're going to be exposed to the sun, and we should get a full power up over there. So here we're going to go straight up because we can't really steer with the solid rocket boosters, so we're going to be going up straighter than we would normally like, and we're not going to have the most efficient gravity turn, but that's all right. So you go. Now we'll start our shift over there. I think the 2 rockets smashed together and 1 broke, or 1 was burned up by this. That's entirely possible too. So we're going to shift. Again, try not to go too far outside of your prograde circle, although having fins encourage your ship to stay facing prograde, so it helps to prevent you from flipping out of control. And that's okay. Also, don't worry about your top speed. There's plenty of tutorials that say, oh, try not to exceed 330 meters per second on ascent because of blah, blah, blah. And it's like semi-true, but really not relevant. You're going to lose more of your delta V from gravity drag than from aerodynamic forces. So if you're not going at full thrust, you're actually mostly just shooting yourself in the foot. Oh, we don't have a little orbit thing. Again, I could do the full flight from the map at this point. but it's handy. It's prettier to look at it here. What we need to know is we need to know our apps is. Hey, we got science over here. Crew report. I don't have an antenna, but we'll just keep that. That's going to be fine. Time to apoapsis is growing. We're actually going pretty flat here. I'm actually quite surprised at how flat we're going to be ending up, considering we started so vertically, but I think I compensated pretty aggressively. Here, Valentina, just stick to prograde. We're going to be fine. So we're just waiting for the apoapsis to be above 70. Usually above 70 with a little bit of a margin, because you kind of want to be able to have a moment when you hit space, between hitting space and actually reaching the apoapsis, so that you've got time to, like, plan your next move here. Yeah, overkill on fuel, but that's okay. There we go. Let's say, you want to say 75? There we go. We'll lose a little bit of it because we're still in the atmosphere, so we're slowing down. That's fine. That's fine. In fact, yeah. We're going to be able to do half our circularization just with our ascent stage. So it's a bit ludicrous, but that's fine. Is Val transmitting live on Kerbal Internet? Well, we didn't give her an actual antenna, so she's gonna be up there, and she's like, "Damn it, I forgot to download Civilization before going into orbit, and I can't get Steam to work here. It needs an authentication before I go into offline mode. Oh, I'm so bored." Poor Valentina. Yeah, she can't even watch Netflix or anything. That's no moon. I mean, seriously, that giant crater on the moon really looks like the Death Star's, like, massive laser dish, right? Mm-hmm. Exactly. So we'll just eyeball the apoapsis. Because we know we're going to have to do a stage at some point, we'll probably start our circularization burn a little sooner than we'd normally like, just to give us a chance to do the staging. Most likely we'll push the apoapsis up to 80 or even 85 as part of it, but again, we got tons of fuel, so who cares, right? Mm-hmm. So, alright, I'm going to go ahead and start the burn now. Again, we'll be pushing up the apoapsis, but that's fine. I just want to use what's left in the tank here. What I should do, actually, instead of burning actual prograde, is I could burn a little flatter, like this, which is semi-radial or anti-radial, one or the other. Oh, there we go. Excellent. That's what I was looking for. So now we can stage and light the next stage. Go there. And since the apoapsis, if the apoapsis is being pushed away from you, it means you're burning too early, which I knew we would be. But anyway, we only pushed it up to 77K, which is nice. Dun, 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 dun. Bring Wi-Fi to Kerbal orbit. Yeah, we'll need a few more satellites or something. I mean, we have a connection to the KSC. That's what the green line is, but not enough to transmit science. So I assume that means that the ping times are terrible. You know, you can play some Team Fortress, but you're going to be lagging like mad. There we go. Time to apoapsis is shrinking. At some point, it will pause and start to grow, and it'll start to get pushed away. Inevitably, it'll always get pushed away or fall quickly behind you at some point. It's, you know, that's just the reality of it. Because at some point, where we're burning prograde is going to stop being our apoapsis, because somewhere else in our orbit is going to become the highest point if we just keep burning forever. But we're pretty close. And again, you're looking for these two to start swapping positions. 80K, 75K. I'll take it. No worries. So, all we got to do is wait 12 days. Now, I can only go to times 50 time warp here because we're below a certain height. However, if I return to the Space Center, then I can time warp at any speed I want. And presumably the contract will keep ticking away appropriately. We're going to find out. A quick save before I came here. So if we open up our contract list here, and we look at the timer, and I'm going to fast forward